Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Julian. Hey, Julian.
Hey, what's up?
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Really chilly fall day here, so that's nice.
It's getting extremely cold really fast, but it is autumn, so hopefully you are staying warm like I am. And Julian, it's just us today. This is a first in a while for Saturday Morning Arcade, I think, or for the Mistake Zone, but this harkens back to some of those early CFRE days when you would stop by the college radio station and we would record duo episodes. And I thought, hey, we're going to record something for the vault, maybe give Matt a little break. And honestly, my first time editing one of these episodes, so hopefully everything goes well. Julian, the reason I asked you to kind of sit around the campfire with me today is because we've both been playing a game, Silent Hill F, and I thought, hey, why don't we come together and have a spoiler cast and throw it in the vault for, one of those weeks where we might not be able to have an episode. So who knows when our friends will be hearing this for the first time, probably down the road. But Julian, before we start, haven't heard from you in a minute. And I know this is going to be weird if you're on another episode before this one comes out, but how have you been doing, man? What have you been up to?
Been doing pretty good. I guess we mentioned that it's autumn, so we kind of timestamped it. But so I'm gonna mention that the Steam sale just finished. So I ended up buying all of Hitman. So our meme joke of complaining about the pricing structure of that entire game, I guess, is now dead and buried. Because I own it now.
You finally solved the conundrum of which Hitman do I buy. But Julian, I know one of my core memories is going over to your place in high school and you renting some of the different Hitman games. I think Absolute was one of them. But how are you feeling with the latest complete version of Hitman right before the 007 game comes out in the near future? I think in the near future, but...
I mean, I won't spend too much time on it, but I think it's really good. It's crazy to think that it took this long for them. I mean, I guess, in terms of where they're at as a company, they didn't really have a whole lot of money. I'm not sure if you, looked into the development of the latest Hitman, but they were pretty much near bankruptcy for, Hitman 2, and then Hitman 3 kind of saved them. And I guess that's kind of what they used to get enough pull to get the James Bond license. But that gameplay loop for Hitman is perfect for James Bond. Because when you think about James Bond, the movies, there is action, but a lot of it is that spy work. And literally every James Bond game we've had is pretty much just an action type game. So yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to that, to see what they're kind of able to do with that license. Because, sneaking around, kind of disguising yourself, kind of using gadgets to get in and out of trouble and problems, that is Hitman, but also pretty James Bond in my opinion. So pretty excited for that, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. When that was announced, when they had the license, I think everyone really celebrated the fact that IO having the license with the gameplay loop that they, perfected with Hitman would be a really good match. And just to see how much will it be more traditional James Bond and how wacky you can get, just because Hitman can get pretty wacky. So definitely something.
Hitman gets real wacky, yeah. It's, I think a lot of people... I mean, if you aren't into the series, you don't really think about it, but there's some, a lot of the disguises you can get and a lot of the challenges are, encourage you to be, silly. So I think it's kind of, baked into it.
Yeah, I think my play time with, I think the first season or the first installment of, the latest generation of Hitman, I remember impersonating a drummer and... Agent 47 not looking anything like him, but everyone's still playing it off. And I really hope they're able to strike a really good balance with the upcoming 007.
They're really stretching that. Yeah, one of the levels is in India. Mm-hmm. And one of the mission things is you're impersonating a Bollywood star. And you're like a bald white guy, but like no one like calls to question or anything. Like it's I don't know. I guess it's kind of just like I mean, it's not meant to be taken seriously, but also like it is like a fun aspect of it. It is like a running joke throughout I guess the series.
It's amazing, and yeah, really excited. But as we continue these palate cleansers, Julian, this week, also dating, time stamping this episode of when it's recorded versus when this will be released. But my partner and I went to the movies this past week and saw a re-release for Perfect Blue,
Nice.
the Satoshi Kon film that originally came out in '97 and was re-released in theaters for, I believe, a limited run. You know, the poster saying this was remastered into 4K. But, you know, Julian, this was a movie you originally put me on to, you know, a while ago, just because, speaking about core memories, one that I have is going together with you and a few other friends and watching Paprika for the first time. And I think it was only until COVID that I finally got around to getting Perfect Blue. And then, you know, embarrassingly enough, only watching it a few years prior. But when going back to the film now in the theater going experience, it's been, you know, just a few years since I last watched it. A lot of the story beats, or certain story beats, I totally forgot about. But the one thing that really caught me off guard is just the cinematography of the movie and just the way they do transitions from one scene into another, and how that kind of blends our protagonist, her psyche, and how she views the world of what's real versus kind of these different career paths, these different lives she's trying to balance as well. That, I don't know, Julian, it's such a spectacle of a movie to me. And to be honest, now that at the time, I finished Silent Hill F for the first time. And while watching Perfect Blue, I kept thinking the story of a idol trying to transition into, you know,
I bet that
the
still
acting
holds
world.
up like quite a lot today.
Yeah, there was two things I walked out of that movie. It's one, how timeless that story is.
Mm-hmm.
Where again, we're coming close to what is it, the 30-year anniversary, you know, 2 years off or so. And just seeing Mima's trials and tribulations and just everything she has to go through to, you know, achieve this dream, what she has to give up, and in turn, what that does to her psyche. It's just a timeless movie, in my opinion. And the story,
especially with like the rise of a lot of like parasocial like discussions and like, it's,
I don't know, it just holds up very well. And then on the flip side, I really do think the story itself and a lot of the different beats and how, again, you're playing with what Mima sees as reality really can lend itself to, I'm not saying it lends itself to a Silent Hill game, but I could definitely see this as a horror game, or at least
it's both like
inspiration for
psychological horror.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where I just walked away from Perfect Blue feeling really good about it. Once again, it holds up. Animation, I still think, is really good as well. Where it also just put me in a mood to talk to you, friend, about Silent Hill F. But just to kind of start things off, if I had to be honest, Julian, Silent Hill is one of the franchises that I associate with you personally. For all these decades knowing you now, there are certain games I associate to different friends of mine. Just either they put me on them or they've spoke highly of them. And one of the games that I associate with you, Julian, is Silent Hill. So kind of to start off our Silent Hill F discussion, what is your experience with the Silent Hill franchise overall? And am I the crazy one to associate this game with you?
No, not at all. I mean, it's pretty extensive. I played 2 on like the PS2, like Silent Hill 2 on the PS2. I missed Silent Hill 1 because I was on the N64 side of the console wars when it was N64 versus PlayStation 1. But I did revisit it eventually, and then ever since Silent Hill 2. I think that was the first video game I played that had a very clear twist in its story that it kind of like implanted itself as a series, wherein afterwards, after 2, I played every single one on release. So like 3, 4, and like even the American ones. So I played a lot of, like, I played Downpour, I played Homecoming, I played Shout Out to Shattered Memories, because I do think Shattered Memories is, in terms of like the American made ones, what is kind of an underrated one, and I really like Shattered Memories. But yeah, in terms of like my experience with Silent Hill, like even the ones that people say are like not great, like I still ended up kind of playing through them.
Right.
So yeah, I wouldn't say it's crazy. It's pretty integral to a lot of like my tastes when it comes to video games.
Mm-hmm.
Is Silent Hill F the one that you is it the first one that you've kind of played in the series, or have you played others in the past?
Oh no, so when I first talked about Silent Hill F and told Matt and Rikush initially about it,
Yeah.
you know, one of the points was the last time I played a Silent Hill game fully was back in 2003, which, Julian, not to give you a tummy ache, was over 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
But the first time I've ever experienced the Silent Hill franchise was secondhand with the original Silent Hill on the PlayStation 1, just because that was a game my cousin had. And that was one of those games where every time my parents would drop us off at my uncle's house, we would, you know, secretly watch my cousin play through the original Silent Hill on the PlayStation 1. And then eventually, when I finally got a PlayStation 2, I borrowed his copy of Silent Hill 2, and Silent Hill 3, I think, was the one that I really resonated with, just because...
Yeah, 3's really good.
That was the first one I bought of the franchise, and I remember that was when I wasn't really, as surprising as this is going to sound, that active online. So that all my information about games, upcoming games, news usually came from magazines. And I didn't realize Silent Hill 3 was coming up until I got, I think it was an issue of Official PlayStation Magazine, OPM, that had, or one of the games with a demo disc that had a demo of Silent Hill 3. And that's when I realized, oh, a new Silent Hill is coming out. And I don't know, it's different to me when you borrow a game as opposed to when you quote unquote buy it, or in this case received it as a present, where I've replayed the heck out of Silent Hill 3, got really into it, really loved Heather's adventures. But since then, I kind of fell off, and it isn't until Silent Hill F here in 2025 that, you know, I really came to the franchise, mostly because I feel like a lot of the movies I've been watching for the last few years have been more horror, more psychological. So I think this really put me in a mood to really jump back into the franchise as well. But
see, that's really interesting, because like your experience with Silent Hill, because a lot of people will say there's like 2 types of Silent Hill. There's like there's the cult Silent Hill, and then there's the psychological, like, trauma guilt Silent Hill.
Yeah.
And the Silent Hills you have experience in is 1 and 3, which is like that cult Silent Hill. Which is funny because that is like, a lot of people, when they think of Silent Hill, like 2 is, unfortunately, fortunately, I guess, is such a, it kind of became its own thing, that it kind of became, it's at the forefront for a lot of people. Right. So you kind of have like the opposite experience of, I would say, a lot of people who are in this series.
Yeah. It's funny how things work out, where I'm not sure why I really fell off after 3. Honestly, I'm on the Wikipedia right now, and I'm just seeing the release timeline. And other than that gap from 2012 to 2023, even though there's a PT mention here on 2014.
Oh, good old PT.
I don't know why I fell off. I think it's mostly just because I heard, even though you might have some more positive experience, I think...
I mean, they weren't positive. I just liked them.
Fair. But I feel like in the video game blogosphere, or the outlets I was following at the time, you know, when it came to The Room and Origins and even Homecoming, it was a bit more mixed, I don't know, as I told Rikush and Matt, I think this was also the time where Resident Evil 4 was such a
Yes, yeah, it kind of
big
took over. Yeah.
part of the gaming zeitgeist and conversation, where I also feel like Resident Evil 4 marked, at least here in the West, a shift from, that more methodical, creepy horror game to a more action adjacent one. And to be
Hmm.
honest, Julian, as someone who can be a big dum dum, I just wanted a gun to protect myself. And, I
Yeah, it's
wanted to
fair.
punch boulders and maybe co op with a friend from 4 and 5. But now that we're here, 2025, with Silent Hill F, again, this was part of Konami's, I think, return to the franchise, trying to bring it back. And with Bluebird Team's excellent Silent Hill 2 remake, in addition to, I think, the short message, a lot of people were looking to Silent Hill F to see, hey, sure, Konami can remake Silent Hill 2, but that's known quantities. Can they deliver a unique
Like a new
Silent
one.
Hill experience? And I think that was everyone's marker to know this franchise was back. Before we really dive into it, Julian, when this game was announced, when we all found out collectively that Silent Hill F would be kind of this diversion of what quote unquote Silent Hill normally is, this Japanese take on American horror. Kind of what was your initial reaction to the news that Silent Hill F would kind of be taking the franchise into a different direction?
So I know a lot of people's like early thoughts was that it's not taking place in America, therefore
Yeah.
it's not Silent Hill, which I kind of disagree with. I don't know, like I played. So a lot of people say it doesn't take place in like the town of Silent Hill, but a lot of the Silent Hill games, even the ones by Team Silent, didn't really. A lot of them, the latter ones, like 3, was mostly outside of Silent Hill. I think you only really get the Silent Hill in like, I don't know, like the last part of it. I know the final boss was. Yeah, I know the final boss was in Silent Hill, but like most of the game is not in Silent Hill. Silent Hill 4, same thing. Like you don't really get into Silent Hill till near the end. So like even Team Silent games were moving away from Silent Hill. When I kind of initially thought about this or heard about Silent Hill F being in Japan, because I mentioned earlier, there's kind of two sides to Silent Hill at this point, right? There's the one that's popularized by 1 and 3, which is like the cult stuff, which is the idea of a group of people manipulating you in a way that in Silent Hill 1 was done through drugs, which is done through like White Claudia. They're like the drugs that they were kind of giving people to like kind of control them, and then that kind of manifested into, what Silent Hill 1 was. And then Silent Hill 3 was like a sequel to that, where Heather was actually Cheryl, who, like, etc., all that stuff. And then the other side of Silent Hill is the one popularized by Silent Hill 2, which is that whole idea of metaphysical manifestations of your guilt and trauma. So like in my head, as long as Silent Hill F was kind of one of those, I feel like it would still take place. I feel like it would still be a Silent Hill game.
Right.
And from the looks of it, when I was looking at Silent Hill F, like before I played it, when I was looking at the preview stuff, it kind of looked like it was going to go into the metaphysical manifestation stuff. But like without getting in too much into the spoilery aspects of it, like there is also the other aspect to it where the cult drug aspect of it is also kind of there. So like it kind of has both of them. Now that I'm kind of like talking to it or talking through it.
And don't get us wrong, this is a Silent Hill F spoiler cast, and we will get to the story breakdown kind of later in the show. It will also be in the timestamps, depending if you want to kind of hop around. Maybe you're still playing through the game and don't want to get it spoiled. But I think for this first half, we will be mostly going to our general impressions, our first reactions, and just the gameplay aspect before we get to the story stuff. But with that note aside, Julian, Silent Hill F, now that it's finally come out, we've all had our time with it. What were your kind of just general impressions of the game overall? Let's start from a gameplay perspective.
I mean, I guess I think the thing that stood out to me like first was the combat.
Yes.
So Hinako has like a crazy dodge, which I wasn't expecting.
Yes.
But I think the thing that stood out the most to me was like weapon durability. And I don't know about you, but like I'm not overly fond of the idea.
This was something I brought up as well, and to Rakush and Matt a few weeks ago, where I understand on a fundamental level why a game might include weapon durability, especially when it is one that is a horror game at its core, just because with horror, you want to create those situations, those scenarios where you're feeling this sense of dread. And one way to amplify that is, do I have a way to defend myself against all these threats coming at me?
Yeah.
Where I understand at its core just having to manage your weapon durability or ammo, if we were talking about the early Resident Evil games as well, where if a game has ammo scarcity, regardless if you have a gun, you might not be able to use it. And likewise with Silent Hill, even though you don't have any automatic weapons, you have something that might break on you. And I think one of the early tooltips or tutorials tells you straight up, hey, this is a game where you have to pick your battles, know when to fight, know when to run.
Yeah.
And at its core, I understand why you would have weapon durability if you kind of want to enforce that, just because I don't know about you, Julian, but after playing a lot of the more recent Resident Evil games, to me, if I have a gun, if I have ammo, I can protect myself. That game is a lot less scary, where I have a way to instantly react to something coming at me. And on the flip side, if I know, oh shoot, weapons aren't that readily available to you, and maybe I might need this before a boss battle, where, you know, thankfully the game is kind of generous. When there is a big set piece fight, there will be weapons for you lying around. But on the one hand, I understand where the durability comes from, but on the other, I think my issue is that the game defaults you to what they call story mode. And story mode in itself makes so much more concessions, where if you go to one of the shrines to save your sanity,
you get sanity back.
You get sanity, you get health back. Where I feel like story mode makes all these concessions for you, but it doesn't really help you with the weapon durability case. And I think it's the fact that our connotation of what story mode means to gaming in general, where, hey, if you pick story mode, it's going to be an easier time. There's going to be a lot less mechanics to manage, just because we want to present you a narrative. And on the flip side, when you tell me you're trying to present me a narrative under story mode, but I'm still having to deal with weapon durability when don't have to deal or manage sanity or health to a certain degree, I don't know. I thought that was at odds with it. And I think that's my main issue, where I personally don't like weapon durability, but what I don't like more is you kind of, you know, to put it bluntly, half-assing what story mode is, just because if you're making those concessions, I feel like you should make that concession with the durability as well, because it gets to the point of I'm more inclined to run. Just because, one, I think some of the weapons feel like shit, I'm sorry to say. But two,
they have like wide swings and tight corridors. Yeah.
Where I want to save my weapons for, especially the heavy weapons, for a boss encounter. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I think that's where I'm coming from. And sorry for kind of cutting you off there, Julian. What's up?
No, all good. No, it's just, like, to your point, it's like, I feel like story mode, I think there's expectations when you say story mode. Mm-hmm. Like the story mode they have presented felt more like a normal to me.
Yes.
Which is weird, because it's like you're still kind of having to manage and all this stuff. And I get it to an extent, because I think the weapon durability is part of the storytelling, if I want to be completely fair towards it. Because it is part of the idea of like feeling helpless and blah 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 and all this stuff. And there is an aspect of the game later on, and once again, like not gonna really go in deep into it now, but there is an aspect of the game later on where they do empower you with something that isn't that doesn't have like the same type of weapon durability. And I kind of see in a storytelling perspective how they're trying to, kind of give you that dichotomy of like, you feel helpless this way, but like, now you're feeling empowered, and they're trying to kind of create that juxtaposition so that, it's part of the storytelling is kind of what I'm trying to say. I kind of see the point of it, but at the same time, as a gaming mechanic, I just never really have fun when it comes to weapon durability. Yeah, because even like you mentioned, even in older Silent Hill games, when you're considering, you feel empowered with a gun. So as long as you have ammo, you feel, you have action. But then when you run out of ammo, you still have the melee weapon. And I think the push and pull for those games is that with a gun, you can be long range. But like once you run out of ammo, then it gets scary, quote unquote, because now you have to get close. Now you have to walk up to the enemy. Now you have to put yourself in a vulnerable position to fight them back. So there is still kind of that push and pull of that horror survival. But, like in this case, if you run out of weapons, if all your weapons break, like your only really choice is to just run, which is, I guess, is fair for the story that they're telling, because I guess they're not going to give a high school girl in the 60s in Japan like a gun. So I don't know. I guess this is the way it has to be.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm thinking about combat in general, and even when I was playing through story mode, I thought that maybe this is on me, because I'll be honest, Julian, I didn't really make use of some of the more in-depth combat mechanics, mostly like focus and the proper counters, just because I played it similar to how I approached like a Dark Souls game, an Elden Ring game, where I'm trying to, position myself accordingly, dodge when I can, and then just do a basic hit, 1, 2, and then back off. And I kind of did the same thing here, just because I wanted to always maintain my sanity. And I have a love-hate relationship with the combat, just because I think it can feel bad at times, but I think on one-on-one encounters with some of the normal enemies, I think it's fine. It's passable. I think my issue is when there's multiple enemies at once, or you're facing off against essentially the child or the monster birthing enemies. Just when there are multiple enemies that you have to kind of navigate, I think that's where the game or the combat breaks for me, just because regardless of Hinako being able to super dodge, I just feel like when you get overwhelmed and swarmed upon, and there are forced combat instances where you can't, run away. Maybe you can run just to reposition yourself, but you still have to deal with them. I thought that felt bad. And not gonna lie, a lot of the enemies do feel really spongy, especially even when you first play on story mode, where it is this. Maybe that's just another way it creates a sense of dread of how long is this going to take? How long can I last? Can I manage this battle encounter? Where, I don't know, I think when it is more grounded, aka when you are just fighting one-on-one, I think it is fine. But the moment you put more enemies on the battlefield, I think that's where it becomes a drag. And I'll be honest, I immediately jumped in for my second playthrough into Lost in the Fog difficulty. Julian, I don't recommend that. One, I think they want you to do Lost in the Fog on your third or fourth playthrough, just when you have a lot more health upgrades, when you have more stealth upgrades, because they want you to engage with the mechanics. Because I'll be honest, Julian, one hit and you're basically dead in Lost in the Fog, where I was doing the Scarecrow puzzle. I was kind of reading the new hint just because, of course, on Lost in the Fog difficulty, I also upped the puzzle. I unpaused, I backed out, and there was already a Scarecrow behind me. I get hit and I died, and I thought, great. Where I had to reset to hard just because I didn't have the means to really...
to fight back,
defend myself from these one-hit attacks. Because honestly, one thing I do appreciate too is there are different monster placements, and sometimes even if there's going to be a jump scare coming up, I feel like I couldn't properly defend on it, and I was like one more hit from dying as well. So I think they really want you to play through multiple times, not only for the endings, but also so Hinako's strong enough to kind of deal with everything. Where, Julian, let's get into it. The first major spoiler part, you said there is a moment where Hinako gets powered up, where she's empowered. Let's face it, Julian, the meme going around is Silent Hill F and Sonic Unleashed are the same game. If you know, you know.
Same thing, same game.
Julian, when Hinako becomes the fox, okay, I'm just going to say it. When Hinako becomes the wolf, the alpha that she is, kind of what was your... We'll get to the story implications later, but from a gameplay perspective, how did you feel towards werewolf Hinako?
I think, I mean, it's clearly deliberate, unless I'm like, reading too much into it. But I'm pretty sure it is like a very deliberate, like, you're feeling weak as normal Hinako, because you have this weapon durability. You have to manage it, you have to worry about it. But like, as this new like fox form, or this new wolf form, it is a fox, right? I'm pretty sure it is, right?
Yeah, it's fox. It's a fox.
Okay. Because when you said wolf, I'm like thinking about it in my head. I'm like, you know what? It looks like a wolf because it is like white gray. And when I think fox, I think like red. But maybe that's like a Japanese
I know that
thing.
in RE, the fox imagery is really strong, but come on, Julian. We all know
it's
what
a wolf.
Hinako is.
It looks like a wolf. But anyways, the fox form, like, it is deliberately supposed to empower you to make you think like, oh, now you're like, because it even gives you, so before you get up to it, leading up to it, you do a couple of the portions in the shrine where you cannot perma-kill any enemies. So any enemies you kill will get back up after a while. And I thought that was deliberate because the shrine, you have infinite durability weapons. So I thought in my head like that was their way of balancing it, right? Now you have infinity durability weapons, therefore enemies don't stay dead. I thought that was their way of balancing it. But then once you kind of get the fox powers, you also get Soul Siphon, which does permanently kill enemies. And it also kind of charges up like, the I forgot what it's called, like, I don't know, Sonic Unleashed mode or whatever.
Where you get burst mode, your rage mode, whatever
your
you
double
call
trigger or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I think it's not getting into the story side of it, but I think it is a pretty deliberate, like, as Hinako is kind of more falling into this fox wedding thing that they're kind of telling you about, she's getting more powerful, and it's supposed to kind of signal a lot of the story. So in terms of the gameplay, I think it is like they're telling a story through that gameplay, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just going into the actual gameplay mechanics itself, I understand you have to balance, but if I had to be completely honest, once again, even in your new empowered fox form, I still feel like a lot of the enemies were a bit more spongy. Where, yes, it feels good to be able to soul siphon them to make sure they don't return to battle. But when I think about some of the different boss or like major enemy encounters, when once again you're dealing with multiple enemies, even though you're invulnerable during the burst section as well, I feel like she could have been a bit stronger. And maybe from a story perspective, that is her trying to become more accustomed to these newfound powers. But in terms of payoff, I still felt, I'll be honest, Julian, I still felt more powerful with the sledgehammer and the axe compared to Hinako in her wolf fox form. So
I mean, the hammer and the axe is just crazy.
They're so good, Julian.
Yeah, they're really
so good. And combat aside, one of the biggest parts about Silent Hill, of course, is the puzzles that you run across throughout the game. I guess just right off the bat, Julian, when it comes to Silent Hill's puzzles, how do you think they were executed overall? Did you have any favorites? And how do you feel like they fall into the lineage of Silent Hill as a whole?
I could be wrong, and people feel free to like tell me I'm wrong here, because I am. I think this thought kind of just got worse as like I sat through it more.
Yeah.
I think the problem with Silent Hill F is too many puzzles in the game have puzzles that assume knowledge outside of what the game gives you. So if I think of like Silent Hill 2, and that's coming up to my head because I played Remake last year around October as well, because it came out around Halloween last year. When you think of Silent Hill 2's puzzles, a lot of the times you'll find notes and you'll find visual cues that kind of push you towards the solution of the puzzle. The only thing that I can think of that assumes knowledge outside of the game was Silent Hill 3's like hard mode puzzle, where it assumes like Shakespeare plays.
Right, yeah.
I think this game has too many puzzles where, I mean, it does have those puzzles where you can read notes that kind of gives you answers. But I think it also has too many times where I was like, this requires knowledge that the player may not have on hand.
Yep.
So like a very, very quick one in my head right now is the box puzzle where the box puzzle in the school. It is asking you to pick the fruits that are tart, quote unquote, right? But like, if you don't know what that means, what are you supposed to do? You know, and
Yeah.
like, and like, some people might easily argue, like, oh, you're being dumb here, Julian. Like, yeah, everyone knows what a tart fruit is, but like, what if you don't? Like, you know, and I'm just thinking like that because there isn't anything in the game that is like, because part of that puzzle too is like, there's like a piece that's like, oh, we have to like find the sakura, and like again, that's another like cultural knowledge thing that you might not have. What if you don't know what a sakura tree looks like, or a sakura
Yes.
leaf looks like, or what a sakura flower looks like? Then you're kind of at that point, you're kind of just like guessing and throwing darts in the dark. And I think there's too many puzzles in this game that kind of assumes that knowledge. Even the scarecrow one you mentioned kind of does that. There's a lot of the times when I'm like, when I paused and I'm like, if I didn't have this knowledge, like where would I be right now?
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's kind of like my, and I could be wrong. Like maybe I just might be thinking too deep into it, but that's kind of like it kept coming up to me because when it comes to puzzle design in my head, I feel like good puzzle design is something you can solve with the tools given to you.
Yes.
And I found that a lot of the times that wasn't here, unfortunately.
No, I know where you're coming from just because yesterday I first did the introductory shrine puzzle, you know, when Hinako first goes into the Dark Shrine world and you're presented with the altar. And the Lost in Fog variation of the puzzle talks about the different plants and flowers that can be found on the different items you have to place on the altar. Where I was once again in that situation of I don't know what most of, other than like bamboo, I don't know what these specific plants are referring to, what they look like, where on each of these objects they would be. And as much as I like how the journal, Hinako's journal itself gets updated with new information you get for the puzzle, when I went to the journal during that time, it doesn't give me much to work with. It just tells me the flower name, the relationship all the flowers have with each other, and that's where the placement would be. But again, it doesn't tell you what, maybe that's just outwardly spelling out what the puzzle is, but I feel like it would have benefited more if you had some sort of reference to what these flowers were, just because during that point of the game, you don't have a lot of additional notes that kind of point out different flowers, where if before she gets into the Dark Shrine for the first time, if you found like, I don't know, Shu's family guide to different plants or medical or herbal plants.
Yeah. Because even like cross-referencing like that could still be fun in my head. Like that is still a lot of detective work. When you think of detectives, a lot of it is cross-referencing information that is given to you. So like, you know, like the example you're giving there, I think that would be fun too.
Where I think, you know, and when we go back to the school, the puzzle box with the tart stuff, again, if we found more notes about specific fruits or more drawings where...
Yeah, like, oh, these are our favorite fruits for this season because they're like sweet or they're like tart or something like that.
Where Hinako, at least the journal presents her to be this artistic person, but maybe if we're, you know, talking about that school setting, if we found a note of, you know, that we're being passed from kid to kid and, oh, I can't wait for lunch. Here's a picture of the, you know, our favorite tart treat that we had recently, or this is memories, something, as you said, that we could cross-reference. I think that would make the puzzles a lot more manageable. But yeah, it's that reliance on, in some aspects, having secondhand knowledge that the game doesn't present you. That was kind of a bummer for me, where there were a lot of times I was kind of just banging my head trying to think out, what am I doing here? And it pains me to admit, Julian, a lot of times where I just simply brute forced a puzzle just because I was like lost in that regard.
Yeah. So like I know it's really popular to like make fun of like design these days of like having the yellow paint markers or whatever. But I feel like there needs to be a safety net on some level. Because like let's say you do have the information just having the information enough will maybe give you that idea, give you the chance to bypass the puzzle in a way where you can, like, if you already know what tart fruits are, then you can bypass, having to look for the information. But let's say you don't have the information, then that means you're going to be forced to, if you were already told earlier that you can kind of like look around and find the solutions when it comes to notes or visual cues, then like it not really a punishment, but it is like extra legwork where if you don't have the information on hand, it's not something you already know, then you kind of have to, engage with the game more, where you have to like find something that kind of tells you something like that. So I don't know. I feel like there needs to be a safety net. I feel like it didn't really have that. A lot of times, like you mentioned there, a lot of times I also found I'm like, I just kind of having to brute force certain things, kind of solve it.
Again, I totally admit this is on me for maybe playing on hard first, maybe playing on Lost in the Fog. Maybe if I started on story, even though it defaults you to story hard, story difficulty for action, hard mode for the puzzles. Maybe if I went story, I would have found the information that would have influenced how I approached puzzles again in the higher difficulties. But let me just say this, Julian, for Lost in Fog, that Scarecrow puzzle in particular, the solution for, I think, the final one, that took me way longer than I realized, just because it's one of those instances where it really requires you to look at this puzzle a lot differently than how it was presented, or not only earlier on in that difficulty, but for all the entire difficulties, where I always do appreciate the different difficulty levels with the puzzles. And I'm always impressed to see how complex you can make a simple puzzle on itself. But sometimes, Julian, I had to walk away, sleep on it, and maybe come back to it when it does come to the puzzles. But Silent Hill is broken down into two kind of different worlds. We have Fogtown, which is Hinako's hometown, and then we have the Dark Shrine area. In terms of Fogtown, how did you feel about the Fogtown portions, and do you have kind of a favorite when you're normal high school Hinako?
I think that's kind of the parts of the game I really liked was kind of like when you're in how do you pronounce the town? Sugura?
I believe
Anyways,
so.
the Fogtown. I think that's kind of my favorite parts of the game personally, because it's kind of like, it does kind of have an exploration aspect to it. I know it doesn't have a lot of it, but there are times where you can kind of veer off and find, more Emmas or more on I'm forgetting the term now, the power-ups, the accessories you can attach to yourself. So there is kind of like an aspect of like exploration to it that I feel like the shrine portion didn't necessarily have. And I feel like also a lot of the times the shrine portions, when it comes to the story, was very like metaphoric, but the Fogtown really dealt a lot of the very clear information of what is happening with Hinako's life. You asked like what kind of stood out to me. I did like going through Hinako's house, because you are kind of figuring out. That is when the game is kind of starting to drip feed you more information about what's actually going on. Once you kind of get to that point of the game, that portion of the game, you're kind of starting to piece. I think you kind of have enough information to kind of start piecing it together to be like, okay, this is actually what's happening. And that's kind of my favorite part of Silent Hill, is a lot of times kind of going in, especially if you played in the past ones, that there is like, you're always kind of looking at the subtext of it. And I think there's always a point in the game where there is something deeper happening here. What is it? And then when you finally start figuring it out, that's kind of like when I'm starting to really enjoy the story.
Yep.
So I don't know, the Fogtown portions I think is the part that I liked personally.
Yeah, I think when comparing Fogtown to the Dark Shrine, I do think Fogtown, at least a lot of the set pieces were a lot more stronger and a lot more memorable to me.
Yeah.
Where, right off the bat, I'll admit, the ritual is probably the most memorable thing that stuck with me in the game. But when I think about certain set pieces, when I think of Scarecrow Field, when I think about the middle school, and when I think about Hinako's house, I think those three in particular are really up there in terms of set piece moments that really resonated with me at the time, where I do agree with the sentiment that the Dark Shrine, there is this feeling, like it does feel a lot more claustrophobic, how one section of the game is called corridors, where it is really suffocating to you. even though there's light exploration, it isn't as deep as kind of what you experience in Fogtown. On the flip side, when I think about the middle school, when I think about Hinako's house, even though those are still tight spaces, they're more condensed story-wise in terms of environments, I still feel like there's this element of exploration that you don't necessarily get when you're exploring in the Dark Shrine, just because as you were alluding to, you get so much more information that really tells you about Hinako's life, about the school, about, especially in Lost in Fog, the Scarecrow Field in particular, how kids are going missing there, where I feel like you're getting so much, to me at least, so much more information to process during Fogtown that makes every discovery feel more meaningful. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest, even though I was talking about, weapon durability, I think it's the fact that I had the crutch of the axe or the crutch of the sledgehammer, where if I was forced into a corner, I feel like I was able to defend myself more than maybe the knife, maybe the pole arm. That would, if I chose to engage in the Dark Shrine, they would come back. So that kind of felt more pointless to me. Yeah. I'll be honest, overall aesthetic, overall vibe, just everything in Fogtown, I thought just was really well done. But I know we're kind of skirting into story territory, and then that's when we'll get to the spoilers. But one more thing I wanted to really get your thoughts on, just because when we were talking offline about our initial impressions of Silent Hill, the journal came up really early in those conversations. And personally, in terms of presentation, I really like the concept of Hinako's journal, just because a lot of the entries are written in her voice. It's how she's seeing the world. And the fact that even though she's presented as this tomboy, this athletic figure, the fact that she has all these different sketches, really well done sketches as well.
Yeah, and they change throughout the game.
Just to see that side of Hinako that isn't necessarily explored in kind of the gameplay and the cinematics, just her artistic side. I thought that was just really well done. Every new entry I was really excited to read, just because I get more Hinako insight and possibly another Hinako sketch. I just thought a lot of that was, from a presentation standpoint, really well done. But my first initial criticism of the journal is that you find so many notes throughout the game. And I wish, the notes that you find, they're kind of tucked away in I think the equipment tab or the items tab, and then you kind of scroll there. Where I wish they went all the way with it and incorporated all those different notes that you found throughout the game into the journal in some capacity, that it was a lot more organized of, hey, these are the entries that relate to Inori-sama. These are from the doctors. This is from the students. Kind of in that regard, because honestly, Julian, going through the equipment menu or the items menu to go through all your previous notes is kind of a pain, and I wish those were organized better. But kind of when it comes to the journal overall, how are you feeling towards its implementation?
I initially hated it, I'll be honest, and this is gonna sound elitist. And that I'm gonna say this completely recognizing that. But I think when it comes to Silent Hill, a lot of the fun with Silent Hill was the subtext.
Yes.
You play Silent Hill 2. A lot of the monsters you don't really understand until you get to the twist. When you get to the twist of the game, you can look back at the monsters and be like, these monsters have a purpose. They're designed purposefully to match the actual story and the subtext that they're trying to tell. Same with Silent Hill 3. A lot of the monsters in that game, you could miss a lot of the story and the themes of that game without even... If you're not paying attention, you could totally miss a lot of the themes of unwanted pregnancies and motherhood and a lot of that stuff you can completely go over your head if you don't understand. Same with 4 when it comes to understanding that story is not about the character you're playing, but about the serial killer or whatever. So a lot of Silent Hill was built purposefully around the core themes of what each one is tackling. And when I initially found the journal, I was like, well, this kind of just tells you, because there's certain things you encounter that monster with the many heads right at the start, pretty early on, and then you break it down and you're like, oh, this is probably, in terms of subtext, you can probably make a quick guess of like, oh, this is probably talk about the idea of like small towns and small town like rumors and people talking and stuff. And then you get into the journal of the monster entry, and it kind of outright just tells you it is that.
Yeah.
So at first I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but I think I kind of softened on it as I played through the game, because it does do something that no other Silent Hills do, which is, like you mentioned, it does get into the head of Hinako. So like Hinako is kind of the forefront of this story, which is very Silent Hill. A lot of the times Silent Hills is very like, it is a character study of the character you are playing. And Hinako's journal, on some level it does take away the subtext, but on another level it kind of lets you understand their headspace, Hinako's headspace, sorry, a lot more than you would say James or Heather. Like with a lot of James or Heather, you kind of have to just assume. And I think unfortunately that has kind of led to a lot of people, this is me saying that I could be wrong also, but like a lot of the times some people really misunderstand James, or some people really misunderstand Heather, because you're kind of just assuming a lot about their character.
Yes.
And maybe I'm part of that. Maybe I have misunderstood James or Heather or whatever. But like with Hinako, and I think I've softened a lot on the journal, because when it comes to the subject matter, I think it is a very personal story when it comes to this person, when it comes to Hinako. And I think kind of getting her thoughts and getting her voice in the game, I think does kind of add to it as well. Even though it's kind of taking subtext away, it is still adding.
Yeah.
So like while I initially hated it, I think I really softened to it by the end of it. And yeah, like there is a lot of it that I did like. I did like the drawings changing as the game progresses, and more of her feelings kind of get revealed about these people. And the journal entries kind of being added to, I think it ended up kind of working by the end of it for me personally.
No, definitely. And I think one thing that you brought up that was always, at least in the forefront of my thoughts, is, again, I associate Silent Hill monsters, all these different creatures, and kind of all of the scenarios that our previous protagonists go through, with some element that is playing a major part in terms of trauma or whatever, just some sort of effect on their psyche and how they view the world, how they view Silent Hill. But when it comes to Silent Hill F, a lot of it is pretty in your face about what these creatures represent. Like the first time you run into, I think, the stalker character, that creature, and it grabs Hinako and it just licks her face. And I think, oh, okay, that's pretty on the nose. And as you said, you go into the journal, and if it wasn't that obvious of what this creature is trying to represent, she'll spell it out for you. Likewise, the monster birthing creature that you fight, as much as I hate fighting that, right off the bat, it's obvious what this creature represents. And then you read the journal, it's right there again, where, I think there is something lost. But again, when you balance it with the fact that at least you have Hinako's view on it, at least we know how these are informing her thoughts and eventually her character moving forward. I think that's a good compromise, but there was a lot less reading in the lines there when a lot of the items, a lot of the posters, even, just finding the magazines about how this is how a woman should act, this is how you should appeal as a woman, mixed with even the more masculine things of when you find those different beer posters of real men drink this beer with, a picture of a scantily clad woman as well, where a lot of these gender normative rules are being reinforced. And even though they're at a glance, there isn't much to read between the lines there, just having that additional context from Hinako, I don't know, I thought was pretty well, at least welcomed for the most part for me.
Yeah, no, I'd agree, because like it is pretty clear about what the subtext is, but at the same time, it does add, like Hinako's voice commenting on the subtext, I think adds to her character in general. Because, like you said, like you see the birthing monster and it's pretty obvious, like, okay, this is that fear of, a woman's worth being completely like distilled into just a baby maker. You know, that's a fear.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you read Hinako's comments on it, you can kind of feel like her absolute like fear of that, her like that's her worth kind of thing. So like it while the subtext is gone, it does add to the character, which in my opinion, you know, does like it is worth it because it is still kind of adding to the character and the story.
And again, there's one thing for, you know, me to see this birthing monster and say, yeah, this is Hinako's representation of women expected to be mothers, as you said, pumping out babies. But it's another to go into the journal and see her strictly say, I never want to be
yeah. Her strong, like, just commentary on a lot of it. And it's like, it's very clear, like, it is that, it is her personal fear. Not to be, like, too deep about it, but, like, it kind of, like, turns my stomach because, like, I feel for her. It's this idea of being forced into this role of, like, I don't want this. And, like, she fears it.
It's one thing for me to think about it and complain about, oh, there's no subtext here, literacy is dead, all the children can't read. But I guess, yeah, on the other hand, there is just something about reading. Even if Hinako's spelling it all out, it hits different when you hear
it's part of it,
Hinako say it, for sure. But all right, Julian, we opened the floodgate. We opened the Hinako's journal, and now all the story is coming out. Julian, this is a beefy game. I know everyone was celebrating the fact that this is, at its core, an 8 to 10 hour game. In some respects, depending on how much you want to explore, maybe a 12 to 15 hour game. But when I finished it, I believe I had around 17 hours on the clock. While this is a sizable story, I think it is a beefy one at its core. There are different layers to kind of peel. But kind of going through, just first at a glance, what do you think overall about the story being told in Silent Hill F, and I guess just Hinako as a character?
Okay, so I think when I was playing it, before I kind of like finished it, I was really curious about what type of Silent Hill it would be. I keep going back to this idea of like, there's two types of Silent Hills, and a lot of Team Silence games, Silent Hill 1, 3, and 4, it really is more about external like things kind of being the fear, like external forces kind of forcing you to do something, and that's kind of like where the fear is this outside source kind of like, you know, being the fear. And then Silent Hill 2 being the more internal one, that idea of that internal guilt kind of manifesting itself. And I found a lot of the American ones, so like Homecoming and Downpour went the Silent Hill 2 route of like, those games were about like the internal guilt of the protagonist as well. I was curious what this one was going to be about. And then I was pleasantly surprised when I found out that it was kind of both.
Yes.
And I don't know, like, I'm not sure if you want to get too crazy into the spoilers here, but like, I think this is probably, if I want to rank like Silent Hill stories, this would be pretty up there, if I had to be honest. I really enjoyed like the story that they had to tell. And I don't know if you know who the author is. I know a lot of people said before this game release, I don't know a whole lot about them. But a lot of people were saying that there are pretty, like, when it comes to horror writers, like, they're one of the best ones. And I think, like, you know, that kind of shows.
Yeah, so when Silent Hill F was announced and it was being written by Ryu Kishio 7, I think everyone was really excited just because they're known as this notable visual novel writer that is horror adjacent, that has a lot of different psychological twists and turns, and everyone was kind of excited to see their craft applied to, you know, a big budget game and how it would be explored in the Silent Hill setting, where I was really excited to see how it played out, just because, kind of as you said, I think I went into the game with this preconceived notion that this would be a more psychological story, just because right off the bat, it gives you a bunch of trigger warnings of, hey, this takes place in 1960s Japan. This is how gender roles were normalized. This is how gender was seen. And I thought, okay, maybe this is kind of a twisted take on that coming of age story of Hinako and just how she navigates being a teenager in this small town when everyone expects her to be a certain way. because right off the bat, again, she's depicted as this tomboy. She's more athletic. She's being shunned by all her friends because she plays with the boys. And so I thought it was going to gravitate towards there. But as you play through the game, you start seeing all these notes about the different clans that populated the area before, about this Inari clan, about these different gods. And especially when you start New Game Plus, seeing all these more supernatural texts, it all started coming together of I don't know where this story was going.
Yeah.
And it got me more excited with every new note I saw where, again, as you said, it's this blend of, are we going to go full psychological? Are we going to go into this more not traditional, but this more supernatural aspect with different gods and sacrifices? And for the story to navigate through all these different avenues was really something to kind of unfold.
Yeah, it's impressive,
and by the time
honestly.
you get to the first ending, the initial ending, I'll be honest, Julian, when that first ending played, that was way more questions than answers, where the first ending, I forget the roost ending or whatever.
Should we
it's
just rip
called.
off the Band-Aid and go spoilers? Or
Yeah,
okay,
let's
we're
do
doing
it.
spoilers.
Where I honestly didn't know what was happening, where throughout the kind of your initial playthrough, you kind of get all these different hints of, oh, is Hinako dead? What happened to her? And I guess maybe this is me trying to kind of outline my thought process to you. It was this feeling of, wait, is Hinako real? To, wait, is Hinako dead? Has she been kidnapped? Oh, has she been sacrificed? But then you kind of get to the ending and the police dispatch saying, hey, our murder suspect is still at large. She was wearing a wedding dress. Another incident happened where, wait, has Hinako's death been faked? Is she, what's actually going on here? And so, Julian, we're old men now. The notion of replaying video games is a hard pill to swallow, but I feel like the initial playthrough at least made me want to learn more, just because as confused as I was in that, let's say, 17 hours of playthrough, I was as confused of where the story was actually going. So how are you feeling about the story, Julian? And feel free to go into specifics as well.
Okay, so first ending. I'll just talk about first ending for now.
Yeah.
So first ending, crazy setup, because so you find out, getting the spoilers, you find out that the entire game or what you're playing is Hinako, quote unquote, talking to God because she is high on crazy drugs, which you find out is White Claudia, which is its connection to the original Silent Hill series.
Mm-hmm.
So White Claudia is the drug used in Silent Hill 1 to kind of convene and talk to gods and blah blah blah, all this stuff. And Shu kind of doing it to giving it to Hinako to have her consider the marriage or whatever. So the first ending is very it's not as supernatural as it gets. So this is probably the least supernatural. So the first ending, if you're just reading as it is by itself, the first ending is Hinako high on drugs, goes crazy during her wedding because she doesn't want to get married. And a lot of that is kind of told through that storytelling. When you're walking down the hallway at the end, you find all the drugs on the ground, all the pills. And then you find out that the red, and this is such a cool thing, but you find out that the red, so the famous Silent Hill red, when you go from the other world, there's a lot of the series uses a lot of red coloring. In the past games, it uses a lot of rust. So rust is kind of what it uses for that red. In this game, it was lights and flowers when you kind of see the red.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you find out at the first ending, the red is the police sirens. And then it does another really cool thing when it happened. I was like, holy shit, that's a really cool twist. The siren in Silent Hill, when it is switching to that other world, they kind of twist it in this where it's a slowed down police siren. So, because it kind of speeds up at the end, where the slowed down horn kind of speeds up and it turns into a police siren. So I'm like, holy shit, that's a cool twist of the subversion of what past Silent Hills has kind of set up this idea of like the thematic consistencies of the red and the siren are now like being played in this game. So you kind of get that impression of like, okay, this is what's happening and this is kind of it. It kind of like, as cool as that ending is, like, it's not cool for Hinako, by the way. I'm just saying it's cool in terms of like twist. It feels incomplete, and I think it's meant to be because it is meant to be played several playthroughs. So this is the only Silent Hill that does this, because usually in Silent Hill, you have like up to 4 endings in your first playthrough, and then 1 true ending in a second playthrough, or something like that. Usually is kind of like how it kind of divvies it out. In this game, your first playthrough has a set ending. It doesn't matter what you do. The first playthrough is always going to end this way. And then it's not until the second playthrough where you have a choice of 2 endings, which kind of like within the context, and I'm not sure if I want to spoil it, but within the context is interesting because it is like a choice. In your second playthrough, you kind of have to make a choice, quote unquote, to get one of the 2 endings. But then that's not even the end of it, because it's the third ending that has the true ending. I think the way they're doing that is like, it's a very like Nier Automata situation where like, it's almost like the other endings are like, to get the full story, if you want the full story, like you almost have to play through it 3 times. Like you can't just like stop at 1.
Just to kind of rewind it back to the first ending, I don't know. I think just from an overall production standpoint, I was just really blown away. Specifically when you said the pill scene where she's walking down the hallway and then we notice all the pills are gradually building up around her. And just the parallel to kind of, a few hours ago when you're walking through Hinako's house and you're walking towards, I guess, where her quote unquote dad is. And the sake bottles are also filling up, and just the parallels to that I thought was such a nice touch. And as you said, the reveal of the red lights being the sirens, and then just the noise of the siren overall, I think all of this comes together and gave me that oh shit pit in my stomach of, okay, this game is getting real. And, that realization that, oh no, all the pills I've been eating throughout the game just because I needed a way to heal because I was scared of dying.
And it's the best healing item, kind of, because it is the only healing item that gives you health and sanity. So like
and it's instant.
And it's instant, and like, and the way the game is set up, like you are, because I rewatched like the beginning, you get hurt in the beginning, and you're near death, so you're almost forced to take it before you continue. So like gameplay wise, they kind of like weaved in where like you don't really question it. And like I made a joke about it of like, oh, like this is like why she just popping pills, but like it was just an offhand joke to me. And then like you find out like several hours later, like, oh, it actually is like something that should be questioned.
Yeah. And so here's my, I guess, issue at this point, where for, as you said, the first ending you can do whatever. The second and third ending, or 2A and 2B, just to put it easily, you can't take pills at all. And for you to actually progress, I feel like it needs to be better from a gameplay presentation standpoint to tell you can't take these pills, where the only reason I knew not to take these pills was because you told me. And if you go, once you finish the game and you go into the ending portion,
it like tells you or something.
It says, it tells you all the requirements. But as someone who didn't do that right off the bat, I just went there. Or from an accessibility standpoint, if you don't go into that ending scene and you're not following a guide or you're not talking to a friend, the game really forces you to take that pill right off the bat, just because, as you said, you're near death. Where with New Game Plus, there are these different scenes, these new items that scenes play out a bit differently. I do like when you start the game and you have that slice of life view of Hinako's home life with her mom and dad fighting, and then Hinako storming out. But when you start off New Game Plus, they're now fighting just because you have the context. These straight up say, Hinako needs to go through with this. We need money to pay off the debt. There's that feeling of, oh, is Hinako actually there because her mother is acknowledging Hinako? But I guess that's what the story presents. Her mother acknowledges Hinako. Her dad doesn't really acknowledge the fact that she's there, once again, playing into the thing that Hinako needs to do this because that's her kind of purpose. But even though they're already establishing that you're getting more context that things were different, I wish there was, just straight up saying, maybe I shouldn't take this. Maybe this is bad for me. And then, I don't know, because Julian, in my New Game Plus playthrough, I'm instantly throwing away any pill I get. I'm never picking up a pill just because I want to make sure I'm getting like a new ending. And I kind of wish it was illustrated a bit better there
I'd almost give them like grace if it was just not taking the pills. Because you can kind of assume from the first ending, like, oh, like a lot of this is happening. Like even when Hinako's talking to Junko, at the end when she's kind of like going crazy because she's just like completely on these pills, like completely psyched out.
Yeah.
You can almost be like, oh, like the pills are bad, so therefore I won't take it. I would almost give them grace if it was just that. But then the other endings also like require you to like find more than just the pills. The sword and like purifying them. So like, with that in hand, like, I completely agree with you. Where it's like, I don't know, man. It kind of like, it does seem much harder to find these endings rather than just like doing a simple like. I wish it was just like don't take pills and then like make a choice like near the end or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole puzzle with the sword aspect, I'm like, that's kind of like you guys are. I feel like that's taking it too far.
You're making us work. And again, it's a story thing of you need to, hopefully you retain everything from your first playthrough of, finding the tree and then finding that other place where you would purify it in theory, and having that context where I'll admit, Julian, in my New Game Plus playthrough, I am following a guide this time just to make.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
From a gameplay perspective, I missed a lot of
I missed most of the Emmas
first time around
in this game. I played this game like severely underpowered.
So Julian, we mentioned it briefly earlier, but aside from some of the set pieces in Fogtown, the ritual I feel like is the part everyone talks about of being not only really graphic and intense, but just the fact that it's played out in that way. Where I have to ask you, Julian, when we finally get to the ritual where Hinako is becoming this fox demigod, I guess, or this werewolf, what was your initial reaction to all three stages, from her getting her arm replaced to her being branded to finally her donning the fox mask?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of circling back to like what I talked about earlier, but it is this idea of like, in terms of the story, I kind of see where they were trying to go for. Is this idea of like the whole game, you have weapon durability, you're like weak when it comes to like sometimes you have to run away, sometimes like and then they start giving you this like powerful way to attack enemies and also permanently make sure that they're permanently dead. So it's like this. It's cool in a storytelling perspective because it is that idea of you are gaining these powers. But when you really look into the context of how you are getting these powers when it comes to the subtext, like that cutting off the hand, that being branded, that kind of taking off your face to put on like that fox mask kind of thing, it is very clearly like talking about that idea of kind of giving up yourself, giving up your individuality, kind of giving up parts of you and parts of who you are to become something else. And I guess in like the context of it, like, she is Hinako, if you're like reading the notes, she is marrying into like this rich royal family that is like paying off her father's debts and all this stuff. So it's like in some ways it is like she is gaining this power, she is gaining like this leverage, like this money, she is gaining this status. Because like this could be me reading too much into it, but in the introduction cutscene when she meets up with her friends again, when Rinko and Sakuko kind of sees Hinako again, they bow to her And it
Yes.
isn't until you get the context that she's marrying into this higher class.
Someone of status.
Yeah, someone of status that you
compared to
kind of
them.
understand
Yeah.
why they're bound to her. So it is like this idea if you're gaining something at the loss of who you are. So like,
Mhm.
I don't know, I found them, personally, I found it like a really well done and kind of like a powerful way to kind of convey that in terms of like the story and the gameplay.
I don't. It's just that shock factor too, where I wasn't really expecting it to be that graphic, and there were, I think, one scene in particular. I think it was during the branding part where Fox Mask offers her the mouth guard
Yeah, and she
to
says no.
yeah to bite, and then she was like no, where I don't know. I feel like that resonated with me in a weird way as well. To me, that was Hinako still showing that I still have
Like some
fight in me
agency, yeah.
where I'm even though I'm doing this on my own terms. And again, she spells that out in her journal point blank of I hate when people make choices for me. I'd rather make a million wrong choices, even if it means that I made those choices. So just seeing where she compromises throughout that whole exchange as well was also interesting. Man, that was brutal. That was gnarly. Where the face part in particular, just gotta say, Julian, that was a really clean cut. Shout out to the Fox maidens there. But you brought them up. When we think about all the other supporting characters, Fox Mask, Sakuko, Rinko, Shu. What were your general thoughts on kind of the supporting cast and all her friends that we meet throughout the adventure?
I mean, meme answer. All my homies hate Rinko.
I said this before, but I feel like Rinko is almost comically
Yes.
villainous. Like she's presented as such a standard high school antagonist, one of those your best friend, but will stab you in the back because she's already talking about you towards anyone else. Where it's so easy for the audience to really harp on the fact that Rinko's awful.
I feel like that's the deliberate thing.
No, it's deliberate, but I think the issue with me is the fact that Rinko has so much development, where on the flip side, Sakuko doesn't. And I feel like when we think about all of Hinako's friends dying in the Dark Shrine, I feel like I would argue that Sakuko gets the worst of it.
Yes.
And it feels extra bad to me just because we know next to nothing about this. So we know a lot about this girl. The fact that she's really self-conscious, the fact that she's scared of the dark, she just hates being alone. Where we don't have the context of Rinko being jealous of Hinako, of Rinko being manipulative, of her literally pushing her down the stairs. But when I think about everything about Sakuko, about her death in the Dark Shrine, of just being left alone in that cage to essentially rot, and then when you kind of go back to the beginning when Hinako lays Sakuko to rest in the candy store, and the fact that she turns off the light and bids her farewell, when you think about it, that's really cruel for Hinako to do. Sakuko just isn't presented at all to quote unquote deserve that treatment. And maybe that speaks to Hinako changing in itself. But I don't know. I just felt like it's the Persona 5 Haru situation with me, Julian. She doesn't get enough screen time to be developed, where I don't know, Hinako just feels extra cruel towards her. And then when Rinko finally gets plunged into a pit of lava, it's like, well, she pushed me down the stairs. I guess I'm just saying that, Julian, I think Sakuko deserved more in this game, but sorry for cutting you off there.
No, all good. No, I'd agree. I think the game is pretty explicit, like especially when you get to the Hinako's house part, that there are kind of like two Hinakos. And you kind of get that too because the way Dark Shrine Hinako acts is quite different to how Fogtown Hinako acts. And then they kind of come out ahead when they kind of have that conversation in her room, and they're like, "Oh, the only way we can kind of settle this is if we kind of like kill each other," kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because there is, and that can, you can kind of subtext wise, you can kind of read that as this person that's kind of torn between two sides. That idea of one part of them wants to kind of stay in this place where they grew up, this idea of this childhood with their friends. And the Fogtown's Hinako is very much more, you can kind of see they are a lot more caring towards their friends. So when they see Sakuko's body in the beginning, she gives her like that burial in the candy shop. You know, she cares about Rinko, she cares about Shu. But then when you kind of see the shrine Hinako, it is very like, she doesn't care about these people. And I think that is that side that is like, quote unquote, abandoning them. So, you know, she is called like a traitor quite a lot because of that idea of she is abandoning this town.
Yeah.
You know, if you think of like that small town in Japan, she is marrying someone that is like of wealth and of status. So she's leaving what she kind of knows behind for this new lifestyle. You know, kind of going back to her friends, like, I think that Rinko kind of, quote unquote, being like comically evil, I agree, but also on the other hand, I think is like deliberate because it is kind of, in terms of the storytelling and the story it's trying to tell, it is kind of going into that idea of when you are an oppressed or marginalized person, in this case a female in 60s Japan, there is a lot of lateral violence, right? There is that idea of when you are a marginalized group, it's hard to attack up because it's hard to attack someone of privilege. So it is that idea of attacking someone, and it is kind of talking about that idea of this patriarchal society kind of forcing women to kind of like fight each other as opposed to fighting the system that they should kind of be like attacking. So I think it is kind of like a deliberate thing of like Rinko and Hinako being put against each other to kind of comment on that. Then like with Sakuko, like I agree, like you don't really learn a lot about her. Most of what you learn about her is through notes.
Yeah.
I do know that it does hint that she is autistic. So I can't even imagine, like, in terms of 60s Japan, being female but also kind of having a diagnosis for this thing that I'm not sure was even acknowledged maybe at the time.
Yeah.
In terms of her storytelling, it is this idea of she was bullied because she was acting different at school. You kind of get a lot of that in the middle school portion. She was bullied a lot. She was kind of by herself a lot because of how she acts, quote unquote. Her only friends were the rabbits. And then she kind of ends up attaching herself to Hinako because Hinako is kind of like one of the only people that is, you know, kind of giving her that leniency or that friendship. And then to kind of have that one person in your life kind of having to leave because of these circumstances, to her was that betrayal. So like, I agree, I wish there was more. I wish she didn't die like right at the start.
Yeah.
I wish there were some Fogtown scenes with Sakuko, but I think her story is more fleshed out in the high school portions. But I just kind of wish she was there also.
Yeah. Where when I think about Sakuko, and as you said, a lot of her story is told through the notes, but you can miss a lot of those notes,
you can
especially
miss a lot
if you
of
don't
them.
visit.
Yeah.
If you don't visit the shrine early on to get her mailbox key, and then actually go to her mailbox at the end of the game, and even the autism line is also, you know, of the time where when you read that note, I believe the doctor says it's a mild case, but it shouldn't affect her. Like, even they're on the one hand downplaying it, but also just trying to use it as context to why people see her different. And as you said, with the note that, you know, she really cares for the rabbits, it really gives context to the deluxe edition outfit for Hinako, her having like the bunny ears.
I didn't connect that.
And then, because when I first saw the bunny ear costume and the fact that there was a side note, the glitch that everyone had access to it for like the first couple of days, even if you didn't have the deluxe edition. So they had to patch it out where it just took it away from the non-deluxe edition owners, I thought was good. And the fact that even if you use it, if there's a certain scene where Hinako's head might, where the bunny ears would be clipping somewhere, they'll just be on the ground beside her or something, which is a nice touch. But even that, where I thought, oh, okay, this is just a goofy meme skin, but even that having a lot of story implications, even to a smaller degree, I was really appreciative of that, where a lot of the things are really context sensitive, and it is definitely one of those games where you need a guide on future playthroughs just to make sure you have everything.
Yeah, you catch up.
That, that everything soaks in. But Julian, we've mentioned Sakuko, we mentioned Rinko. How do you feel about our boy Shu and his role in the story?
Goddamn Shu, man. I don't know. I was under the impression that it was like a one-sided love, I think, at the start. But I think it's inferred that Hinako also likes Shu. So I was like, dang, because this kid's, I don't know, man. Okay, in fairness, my opinion of him is colored because of the fact that he gave his friend on her wedding day drugs.
Yeah.
Yes. that. So like, he's technically, if you really want to be technical, he's technically the cause of all this. So, but I guess a lot of it is like him trying to, you read the notes, and I think a lot of it is him trying to force her to have a introspection of like, is this what you actually want? Yeah. And I don't know. I don't want to really get too much into it because it'll kind of spoil the second playthrough endings. But I will say my opinion of him, unfortunately, is kind of colored because of of the actions he takes that is revealed.
Yeah, I know this is supposed to be a spoiler cast, but I guess everyone's still playing through. I don't know when this is released. I guess, we'd have really focused on the first initial playthrough. But I guess in that regard, just to kind of tie a bow on all the different characters, I asked about the friends. I got to ask, Julian, what did you think of Fox Mask?
Well, you didn't tell, what's your opinion of Shu? You didn't talk about it.
Fair. Like, Shu, to me, is... When I played through the initial playthrough, and even just trying to get the subtle differences in the New Game Plus playthrough, I don't know, he seems like that typical NPC character in an anime where I hate to use the term NPC energy. So when I think about Shu's death in particular, and the fact that he's hung, Sukoku's left in the dark, Rinko's plunged into lava, but his death when he's hung in the dark shrine, and kind of that's how Hinako kind of cuts him off from his life, or at least perceives to cut him off. Like, I feel like the hanging imagery never really resonated with me that much. Where I still go to Sakuko having the most like cruel one of the three, but
yeah, I'd agree. That one's very like striking.
Yeah,
I don't know, because it's not really a direct death, because the other's like, I mean, it's an inferred death, but like she's still alive, and when you leave her,
it plays off her insecurities and everything, her fears and everything. But with Shu, his hanging in particular, I feel like even if his was the last section you go through, finding all the most precious memories, the fact that he considers Hinako his partner, the fact that they grew up together, the Space Wars thing, it's this really forced connection. And I feel like, just there's something unnatural about it. And I understand the notion of him providing the pills to Hinako just to make her, on one hand, be okay with her arranged marriage, and the other maybe force her to be more introspective as well. But I feel like Shu is just there. He's just a plot device. There's like this weird, as much as the game wants to tell you that there's this heavy connection between the two, it feels, I don't know, weirdly artificial. I feel like Hinako and Shu's chemistry just also isn't there, just from like a production standpoint. They're partners in crime. They fought together in the Space Wars, but at the same time, he feels so small. And maybe that's just because I'm not considering the other endings, and maybe there's a lot more context I'm missing through the different notes. But I just feel like his role feels so much smaller to me, even though, as you said, he's kind of the catalyst to all this. As much as I said I wish Sakuko was more, I feel like her notes resonated with me compared to all these different scenes with Shu, and maybe that's how kind of I see it. Big NPC energy, big simp energy.
No, I'd agree, because like what you said about like it really resonates with me. Like what you said about the fact that like you're kind of like more so told about the relationship as opposed to
Yeah.
kind of it being shown. I get it's probably for gameplay conveniences.
Hmm.
Even in the Fog Town when he is present, he's not really.
Yeah.
When you're like walking through the town, for some reason he like is not there. So like I feel like I wish there was like an NPC shoe that is like helping you in combat that is not like in your way. And in that regard, maybe they can kind of form this connection of, or this reliance on this shoe. Because like when you kind of take him away, you say you go to the dark world, you kind of take that reliance away. You can kind of feel his absence. But like I don't really. Yeah. The only thing I know about him is like you said, it is a lot of like just told to us. Like he is an important person to me and in like the journal. I think my problem is maybe I think too highly of Hinako, but like even if she was given the choice of marriage, I don't think she should choose Shu.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about the boss fights. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we fight Sakuko, we fight Rinko. We don't fight a variation of Shu. Do we fight? We don't fight a variation of Shu.
Not in the.
We fight her parents.
Not up to the first game, but yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
fair.
Not to get into spoilers.
But I guess through my context right now, I guess if it isn't clear, I'm still playing through New Game Plus right now. Yeah, I just feel like based on that first playthrough, I don't have a good handle on Shu. Even though if he's so important to the story, I just feel like the chemistry isn't there. And you know me, Julian, chemistry is everything to me.
No, it makes sense, yeah.
And I guess that's the duality of man. We have so little Sakuko, but I'm still really fond of her. And yet we quote unquote have this overabundance of Shu, but in the end, he kind of feels nothing to me.
Yeah.
He's more so just something to amplify how villainous Rinko is being. But kind of winding down, Fox Mask. I know Fox Mask in particular, when we were first introduced to him, and then I was still sorting through my feelings of, all the information we've had at that point. I thought that, this is just maybe a representation of Shu or how she might view Shu. Mm-hmm. But then when we start to find the notes, especially from, I think it was the Stern Mother, and we learn about this other boy who is kind of, as we've set up, is part of this more higher class or this royal lineage. And when we get more information about how his family does do these rituals that they need to appease the certain fox god, we kind of get more. And then I guess this is where that introspective psychological Silent Hill meets the more
cult.
What were your thoughts of Fox Mask overall, Julian?
I thought it was interesting because, like I said, I thought it was like when I was. You can play the first few hours of this game and think it is kind of the psychological thing, and then you kind of read all these notes when you're in the Dark Shrine, and then you're like, oh, like this is like an actual family lineage. Is very culty. The cult is here, and then there's a lot of like notes talking about in the town of like the idea of like a fox wedding, and then you kind of. Like as you're kind of going through this dark shrine with the fox, it wasn't very. I'm not sure if you caught onto it really quickly. I didn't catch onto it as quickly until like maybe the second or third visit. But like you are pretty much walking through a wedding with this guy.
Yes.
Yeah, it took me like a little bit to like catch onto that. But I was like, oh, okay. Like I am. A lot of these scenes is just me walking through this wedding with this man.
Yeah.
And the game sells it to you as like he's like this very charming. He's very protective. He protects you from like the Sakuko boss battle. He like protects you from her.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my problem is I wish they didn't. I guess this is a different conversation. But like that doll, Junko's doll, or is it Hinako's doll?
Yes,
I can't remember. Is it Junko's doll?
Hinako's
it is,
doll,
right?
I believe.
Yeah. So like. Junko's doll, like right off the bat, is like, don't trust him, and then I'm like, okay, like, I guess you're just gonna tell me how to feel, and that gets complicated later on when you get to the later endings. But like on an initial ending, you're told right away not to trust him. He's kind of written in a way that he seems very scheming, and his whole motif is the Inari, the fox, which like if you do know outside information. Is tied to that idea of someone that is very scheming, someone that is very like someone you can't really trust.
Yeah.
Um,
But sly as a fox, as they
yeah,
say.
so like I don't know. I like the subversion and the later endings of a lot of this, but if we're talking about just to the initial ending, you don't really you're kind of just told not to trust him, and then it's kind of just confirmed you shouldn't trust him, and that's kind of like the start and end of it. So like I don't know,
Yeah.
there's not really a whole lot to say much aside from that, I think.
I guess my initial takeaway is Julian. I'll just say it. They made him traditionally handsome.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a good jawline.
Yeah, even with the face covered.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was always what I was kind of hoping for. Is as you said, we had shout out to the doll, by the way.
Yeah.
Where the doll's trying its best to warn Hinako and just being ignored left and right.
Yeah.
Where at least from an initial playthrough standpoint, I really wish there was more of a payoff to that. Where again, I understand the wedding motif. I understand that this is essentially Hinako giving herself to him. And I just wish there was more, at least in that initial playthrough, instances of retrospection of maybe I should listen to this doll. But I feel like between just his sweet talking and the fact that we're introduced at least to the Dark Shrine version of Junko, Hinako really just goes along with him. And I guess that's what I'm really excited just to see more of. How does one of the Hinakos kind of push back towards him? I don't know. I need to play more, of course, but from the time being, I just wish there was at least more of a payoff to all the doll stuff from your initial playthrough. But as we discussed, the expectation is you play through this, where I think one of the things I've come to in terms of reception of this game is there's, that subset of fans that are replaying it to get the most of it, to get to most of the story. I'll be watching TikTok and just a lot of people saying that, hey, I've watched 30 hours of Silent Hill F gameplay of story breakdown just because I don't have a console to experience it myself. And it definitely is a game that wants you to sink your teeth, but there's also that subset of people that are like, no, I'm just going to watch the endings. Like, that was a good initial playthrough. Watch the endings and get my take of it. Where I do appreciate just what is being added in New Game Plus, but at the same time, from my playthrough of it so far, there are some instances of maybe it wants you to go down, off the beaten path. Where again, if I wasn't following a guide, Julian, I feel like even with the New Game Plus editions, I would have missed them regardless. Where even though there are tight areas of these smaller environments that you go through, there is still some parts that you want to explore. And it kind of expects you to really deal with the monsters around you, just because at least in the early instances, whether you're exploring Fogtown or you're exploring the Dark Shrine, going back to the combat discussion before, it does want you to kind of manage those enemies, run past them if you have to, just so you can find maybe a new note, find a new path that's opened up, found a new Emma. And I think my knowledge of my initial playthrough is I know where areas are quote unquote safe because no monsters spawn yet. You need the cinematic, you need for them to spawn. So there was a lot more of me trying to explore that area before the monsters start spawning, but also being put into situations of Hinako saying, no, I should probably walk towards the monster and then I can explore afterwards. So again, it's doing a lot of good things with New Game Plus that I appreciate, but kind of at the end of the day, it really does want you to replay them, and at least it gives you a added incentive to do so by discovering all of these new things and whatnot. But Julian, we've been talking for kind of a beefy time, and I really appreciate it. So before we get into a quick Don't Match Me challenge, just because we have to, what are your final takeaways from your time with Silent Hill F?
I think we're back, if I have to, in terms of Silent Hill. I say that jokingly, but also like I really do appreciate Silent Hill 2 remake was great. F, for something that is completely brand new, is
Yeah.
was great, and I know Blooper Team is working on Silent Hill 1 right now. And then there's that other Silent Hill by Annapurna. Do you remember the name of it?
Once again, I'm looking at the Silent Hill release timeline, and after F, we had the Silent Hill remake that's to be announced, and then Silent Hill Townfall.
Townfall, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, Townfall. I'm curious about that because Annapurna is a American studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, or
Yes.
no? It's a Western studio.
It's a Western
right?
studio.
So I'm curious how that's gonna be because now we're living in a timeline where simultaneously we have a Japanese Silent Hill and then now also a Western Silent Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious if Townfall is gonna fall into the side of Downpour and Homecoming. But that aside, I think F is great. It was a really great story. It does play a lot and does a lot with the conceits and expectations of what a Silent Hill is. People saying this isn't a Silent Hill game, I will say, like, bar none, have probably never played a Silent Hill game if that's their impression. Because this game is like dripping like Silent Hill, like when it comes to how it tells its story, the motifs, the idea of like, the things that you expect are here while it's kind of spinning it in new ways. So yeah, highly.
Yeah.
I think it's great game.
We're definitely, I was really impressed with the story being told. And again, I told Matt and Rakush this, where it's been 20 years since I played a proper Silent Hill. And the first time I got control of Hinako, I went down the mountain and found my first note. Seeing text that was even just similar to at least the text that I read countless times in my mind 20 years ago really did a lot for me. It was a really good impression. Where what I'm most excited about this franchise is, or at least the series franchise going forward, is how they intend to explore different, locations. Like, I would love to see, what does a European Silent Hill look like? What does, a South American Silent Hill look like? What does an African Silent Hill look like? Just these different cultures and motifs coming together while still blending that, psychological horror, that cult-based horror, where I think if it all comes together, I'm really excited just to see what the future holds.
Yeah.
And while we still have you here, Julian, Kojima and OD, does any of that do anything for you on the heels of, PT, which was also a decade ago at this point?
I'm not sure because is it supposed to be a Silent Hill game? Like I know a lot of people are like saying that it is like it's supposed to be inspired, like similar to PT. But like, what do we really know about it?
So I feel like with the teaser that was shown, a few weeks ago at our time of recording, I feel like not much is known. I do see that, of course, this is a Kojima project, but also that Jordan Peele is attached to it in some way, who I think it's reported on that he's also a co-writer on it. And in many regards, this is supposed to be... I saw the phrase mixed media franchise going around where maybe Kojima might be handling a game version of OD, and maybe Jordan Peele might do another medium for, to continue exploring this world of OD as well. But for the most part, from what I'm seeing, OD began to be envisioned as sort of a spiritual successor to PT. That was by fans as well, where even if this might not be what Kojima's original envision of what a Silent Hill should be, I feel like this is still him trying to get into his spooky bag. And I'm curious just to see how much of it will be kind of inspired by what fans have come to love about PT, or if this might just be a new experience in general. And when it does eventually come out, one thing that makes me excited is just going to be all the essays of, hey, this is how this aspect of OD could have been applied if it had a Silent Hill name of, hey, maybe if this was under the Silent Hill moniker, this could have been this Silent Hill theme or a reoccurring character or something like that, where I don't know. I feel like we're back, Julian, in terms of spooky games, especially if this is Kojima trying to get, if this allows him to kind of explore what he originally wanted to do
Yeah,
with
with
Silent
PT.
Hills
Yeah.
and PT. I think that's great. But
I mean, Jordan Peele's horror, a lot of his like stories are kind of like subtext heavy. So I feel like it is like if you're getting Jordan Peele as one of the writers, I feel like it's a step towards kind of like having a Silent Hill-ish psychological horror.
yeah, so
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious though.
me too. But
Yeah.
yeah, sorry for that last curveball. And I
No,
guess
all
final,
good.
final question. Julian, Silent Hill 1 remake coming from Bluebird Team, and we probably know that Silent Hill 3 would be right around the corner afterwards since those two
Yes.
go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Have to ask Julian, one major part of Silent Hill 3 that always resonated with me was the fact that you could enter cheat codes and unlock different video game magazine t-shirts for Heather to don during your playthrough. Julian, what would be the video game magazine equivalent in, let's be generous, 2027, 2028, when the Silent Hill 3 remake comes out? What cheat codes are we entering to get what kind of clothes for Heather at that point?
Favorite YouTubers?
Podcasts, maybe? Podcast logos? I don't know.
Put this
Man.
code in to get a PewDiePie T-shirt for Heather.
I'm really curious to see what form, because as I said, Silent Hill 3 means so much to me. I'm really curious to see what form it takes. And honestly, Julian, I'm not looking forward to, what was it, beating the final boss with melee only, just so I unlock something afterwards.
I wonder if they're gonna bring in all the secrets because there were some secrets for 2 remake that they didn't transfer over.
Mm-hmm.
There are some like the chainsaw you can kind of bring back, but like I know 3 kind of had like, I guess like crazier secrets because Heather had like a lightsaber or something, right?
Yeah, at one point.
And I think there's like
sword.
there's a magical girl transformation like costume for Heather.
Yeah. You can still bring that stuff back, but yeah, I'm really curious. And I know for Silent Hill, there are rumors right now. I believe there's going to be a broadcast at some point just revealing the future of kind of the Silent Hill franchise as well. But with, I think, that console exclusivity ending, there's the rumors going around that, a Silent Hill 2 remake will come out for the different platforms, and then there's going to be DLC in the works, including, I think, Born from a Wish.
Born from a Wish.
Which,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we'll see in the upcoming weeks as well. But Julian, thank you once again for joining me for this Beefy Boy episode. But in the spirit of the Mistake Zone, we have to do real quick a Don't Match Me challenge. And for those who are unaware, the Don't Match Me challenge is every week at the end of our episodes here on the Mistake Zone, one of the hosts will bring forth 5 questions. And all you have to do as a listener, as a friend of ours, is come up with an answer that doesn't match, in this case, my answer. If you want to play, so that's the story difficulty. But if you want to play on hard difficulty, try to come up with an answer that doesn't match my answer and doesn't match Julian's answer as well. I know this is a Silent Hill F spoiler cast, so I'm not sure if normal listeners will be joining us to the very end, but just in case you still want to participate and you don't know, feel free to pause the game, look up the questions, come up, find an answer, and hope your answer doesn't match our own. But Julian, since this is our Silent Hill F episode, our Silent Hill F spoiler cast, I thought, what better way to do a Don't Match Me challenge than to base it off our girl Hinako's journal, where this is the Don't Match Me Hinako's journal challenge, where every question will be related to something found in Hinako's journal. So to start it off, question 1, name any tutorial that appears in the tutorial tab of Hinako's journal. Throughout Hinako's adventures, there are different mechanics, there are different game concepts that, this is less her commenting on the world and more, hey, this is our, in part, instruction booklet. So Name any tutorial that appears in the tutorial tab of Hinako's journal. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you said heavy weapons, you're out. Julian, which tutorial did you pick from Hinako's journal?
I genuinely don't know if this was one, but I was like, dodge? Is there a dodge entry?
Yep. Dodge is there.
Okay, awesome.
Still gotta say, Julian, that dodge is so jarring.
That dodge is crazy.
You said it. She's on the pills, makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean she is. Yeah, because like if you compare it to like James's dodge, which is like just like a little shimmy, like the ground she covers is crazy.
Question 2, Julian. We fought a lot of different enemies in this game. So for question 2, name any monster that appears in the monster section of Hinako's journal. Essentially, name any monster that appears in Silent Hill F. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you said specifically the Dark Shrine Blade Dancer, you're out.
Oh.
Julian, who do you got?
I did the shackled one, the one with the lock on their neck, the shackled monster, I guess.
So yeah, the Dark Shrine version. I guess that's the first major enemy we meet in the Dark Shrine as well.
Yes.
Where, real quick, Julian, what did you think of the enemy variety in Silent Hill F? Just because I feel like at its core, there are only technically 4 or 5 different enemies, but 2 variations. Essentially, Fog World and Dark Shrine have the same enemies, but just with a different coat of paint. I personally feel like, given the fact that Hinako comes from a small village, like, I'm not trying to excuse the enemy variety, which I think is really on the low side. But at the same time, it kind of makes sense from a story perspective to me that Hinako's view of the world might be a bit smaller, just considering where she lives.
Yeah.
It's the fact, one of the notes that really resonated with me was when you find in the middle school, and it says that, oh, our parents or the earlier generations worked towards making this town better, when the younger generations work towards leaving this town behind.
Yes.
And I think when you have such a small kind of worldview, of course, all these monsters that are manifests of your kind of personal trauma would also be kind of limited as well. But at the same time, from a gameplay perspective, I do acknowledge the fact that there are only really like 4 things you fight, and each of them are pretty spongy at their core. But kind of in terms of enemy variety, Julian, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, like, because fundamentally, like you said, there, in terms of aesthetics, there's different ones. So like, for example, the vomiting, the monster that vomits or whatever, I think in the shrine it is dolls, but in the real world it is like heads, but they're like essentially the same monster. I think a couple things in terms of monster design is like, I had a hard time because I could be wrong, but I feel like there was higher level monsters. There's a monster that looks like the shackled monster, but like in the fog town, and he glows. Yeah,
the perfect one, essentially.
Yeah, I feel like he's faster than the shackled monster.
Yeah,
or something.
That's true.
So I don't know. I feel like there's some variety, but at the same time, they are essentially the same. So I will attest to that. But I think the one cool thing that I noticed, and I didn't notice until like much after the fact, is the only monster that keeps coming back in the Fogtown version is the big monster with the blade.
Yeah.
And I kept wondering why that monster kept coming back in the Fogtown while all the other monsters in the Fogtown died. And then I realized it's because it's revealed later that that monster is the one that's representative of Hinako's father. So it's like the one monster she can't beat. So I was like, that's kind of cool. But anyways.
Fair.
Yeah.
Question 3. Name a puzzle that appears on the puzzle tab of Hinako's journal. AKA, name any puzzle that appears in Silent Hill F. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you said the stairwell puzzle from the school, you're out.
No, I picked the stupid lock deciphering puzzle.
Yeah. That one was a good one. Even though the SOS one, I needed to rely on your hit for that one, Julian. That one went way over my head. I don't know. I think pound for pound, I think the school was like really strong in terms of just like story content and even puzzle content as well.
Yeah.
Even trying to find the key was like pretty fun.
Yeah,
but-
pretty dense. And I think it's the first time you pick up a heavy weapon. So you're like,
Mhm.
oh, hell yeah.
Yep.
Like the moment you kind of start using it.
Fell in love with the sledgehammer there.
Yeah.
Question 4. This might be a thinker, Julian, especially if you don't pull it up. But name one of the information pieces found on the information tab of Hinako's journal. Name any information piece from Hinako's journal. So essentially throughout the game, we find all these different, environmental world building pieces of information, pieces of notes, and those go in the information tab of her journal. So name any ongoing theme or running theme throughout the story that would appear in the information tab of Hinako's journal. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Friends, if you said Space Wars, you're out.
Ah, dang it, I'm out. That's the only one that I remember. I was like, is it?
I'm sorry, Julian. When they started talking about Space Wars, like pretty early on in Silent Hill F, I immediately thought, damn, they're really handling the UFO ending, handing that to you on a platter.
Yeah.
But I think that was an ongoing theme that I really did enjoy. But final question, Julian. Name any character that appears in the character tab of Hinako's journal. So essentially, name any character from Silent Hill F in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you said Hinako's sister Junko, you're out. Julian?
I picked Shu, the instigator.
Big NPC energy.
Yeah.
That was our Silent Hill F Hinako's Journals Don't Match Me challenge. Hopefully you guys survived story mode and hard mode. I don't know what Lost in the Fog mode would have been in that case. Julian, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to join me on this beefy boy episode of The Mistake Zone.
Yeah,
going
for sure.
through just Silent Hill F, our initial impressions, our first playthrough, some of the themes, some of the characters. But yeah, this is definitely a game that has resonated with me and one that I think about a lot. And I'm still thinking about since I'm still playing New Game Plus. But Julian, two more questions for you real quick. One, how does Hinako to you rank amongst all the Silent Hill protagonists?
Oh, I don't know. I'd say like James, Heather, Hinako.
Okay.
I know a lot of people will like Harry, but like I don't know. Harry's fine. He's just and Henry Townsend from 4.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I'd say 3. I say 3.
She's good. Okay, final question, Julian. If we wanted to tarnish Silent Hill because we're businessmen and we know what sells, where would have you inserted Pyramid Head in Silent Hill F?
Oh, where would I have inserted Pyramid Head?
Yep.
I mean, the easy answer would be the shrine. Because no, okay. If we look at Pyramid Head as a force for someone that's punishing people, because that's what Pyramid Head's supposed to be. I guess when Hinako's rejecting the marriage, because then it's like I don't know, she's being punished for it. I guess I don't know. I guess that would make the most sense. Yeah, the Dark Shrine. I would have Pyramid Head be like something that chases you through the Dark Shrine.
Julian, in another world, when Konami isn't trying to bring back Silent Hill in the fullest, there is a notion where when you're first following Fox Mask for the first time, if you look to the left just a bit, you'll see Pyramid Head just walking, knowing that he's still going to be here because Pyramid is Silent Hill.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I'm really glad that Silent Hill F really does stand on its own and is paints a really bright future for the future of this franchise.
What do you think the F stands for, if you had to guess?
Friends, to be honest.
Friends.
like I know that sounds like the meme question. Considering how much of a role, Rinko and Shu play, she's kind of rejecting them. I don't know. When I thought, what does the F stand for? ironically and non-ironically do think like friends to me, but
Oh,
I
I
think
thought you were
that's
gonna
just
say
my Western
female,
view.
because I was like, because it is like a lot of it is those themes.
Is female your thought of it, Julian?
I mean, a lot of, I mean, this isn't me because I've
Mhm.
read this online, but a lot of people smarter than me said that the F is a forte, or it's like the symbol of forte.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, that seems like it parses, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
what that would mean in terms of the story, though.
Female makes sense. To my casual brain, that's reading at a surface level. It's friend. It's the friends Hinako made and lost along the way. I thought that would be explained in some capacity, but maybe even though some of the themes and subtext is served to you on a platter, maybe this is the one we have to think about. Likewise, how I'll be thinking about it. Once again, thanking you, Julian, for joining me this week
No problem.
and exploring all just Silent Hill has to initially offer on the first playthrough. Want to thank Hinako. I want to thank Heather. I guess I'll thank James as well.
No, don't thank James.
Fair, fair, fair. Not thinking James. What did we learn? Say no to the pills that your NPC friend gives to you because that will
don't do drugs.
partially lock you out of the ending that you want. Normally, this is when I would throw it away to Matt to tell us what we're out of, but for this week only. And this has been the Mistake Zone, and we're all out of red pills given to us by Shu because I've been throwing them away and not picking them up at all.